You're at 109 right now.
Let's get into it, shall we? This is the iSee109 podcast. I'm your host, Larry Wiggs. If you can see me, I'm saying hello to you. Let me look into the cameras. Well, I'm recording this because you just have to keep producing content. And I've had some recent travels lately, and I guess my travels will be the content that I will discuss. Let me get my pen and pad. Got it. So, actually, I made a list. I made a list of the places and locations where I saw 10-9, and I wanted to go through that list once again. So if you're listening, if you're new to the podcast, well, you're in for a treat because I'm going to run it down. Now, if you've listened to the podcast before, I'll try to make this rundown interesting for you, even though it may not be your first time hearing this rundown. Where did I write this list? Yes, I put the list in my Jean-Michel Basquiat notebook, which is in my other room. I've got to go get it. So if you don't mind, I'm going to leave you for a moment, and I'm going to maybe I'll play some tunes to keep you occupied. All right. Let me find a good jam. Shouldn't be too long, so I'm just going to play this cut, and you should be good. All right.
Who's that girl? 'Cause I'm down by law. It's the real deal. I'm down by law. Who's that girl? I'm down by law. Wild style. Fab Five Freddy.
Yeah. All right, Joe. Fab Five Freddy, down by law, from the Wild Style soundtrack. Okay. All right, so let me get into this. This is the iSee109 podcast.
You're at 109 right now.
That voice that I just played, that was the voice of Kobe Bryant. May he rest in peace. But you know, legends never die. So I bring that. I'm calling his spirit into the room as I discuss this. Matter of fact, with that said, before I get into the number 10 and 9, let's go back to Kobe Bryant, okay? Because today is August 28th, but let's see, 4 days ago was August 24th. Yeah, it was the 24th, right? And so I was at school and I noticed a lot of, not a lot, but I noticed at least 4 people wearing conspicuous. They were conspicuously decked out in Laker gear. And I looked and I thought, why are they doing that? And it later dawned on me that they were doing that to commemorate, a way of memorializing Kobe Bryant. And I thought about it. I said, oh, today or that day was 8/24. Now 8/24, those were Kobe's jersey numbers, 8 and 24. And so for me personally, that has another added level of significance, because you know, this iSee109 podcast, or iSee109, this podcast is about numerology. A lot of it has to do with numerology, but then there are a whole bunch of other levels to it. But the base level, the first level, is numerology and what numbers mean to us and what significance they hold. And it's kind of interesting that 8/24, not only are they Kobe Bryant's jersey numbers, And yeah, I guess that's all that significance there is to it right there related to Kobe Bryant. Those were his jersey numbers. But for me, those numbers hold greater significance because at 8:24 p.m. on 10/9, I was born. Did you get that? Yeah, I was born at 8:24 p.m. on my birth certificate. That's what time I was born. So what is that? 2024? You know, in military time, 2024, right? 8:24 p.m. That's the time I was born. Crazy coincidence, right? Crazy coincidence how I am calling Kobe Bryant's spirit into this podcast because I'm talking about numerology. And I'm talking about what these numbers, in particular, what these numbers 10 and 9, what they mean to me, 109 or 10/9 as I like to call them. You dig? Crazy coincidence, right? I want to talk about 10/9, but in order to do that, I have to go back and talk about the voice who I use, whose voice I use in this podcast. None other than Kobe Bryant, the legend.
You're at 109 right now.
He said you're at 109 right now. Shout out to Hassan Hayes for giving me that, for putting me up on that sound bite and that video. Kobe Bryant was he was participating in a contest at the at what was the Staples Centers at the time. It's now the Crypto.com Center. Well, yeah, they were having a little shootout and everything, and Kobe was like, shoot 300 points or 300 times or something. I don't know. Maybe it was 300 points, and the guy was at 109 points, and Kobe said, "You're at 109 now." I would not have known that. I'm not a big I'm not a real big sports fan, but my former high school schoolmate Hassan Hayes put me up on it, and he was like, I know 109. I know those are your numbers, so here's Kobe, the legend, saying 109. There you go. He dropped that one on me, man. Player, man. Shout out to Hassan. Okay, so let me get into 10/9. These numbers. Let's get into it. All right. Kobe Spirit is in the building with us. So let's just get into it, right? All right. So 109. 109. As I said, it's an allusion to my birthday. So when I see 109, I think of October 9th. I had to move to South Korea in 2007. And the crazy thing is that 109 or October 9th is a national holiday in Korea. So that was cool. I think I want to play this though. I want to drive this ideal home. I'm going to play Dick Gregory. Because in Dick Gregory's album entitled You Don't Know Dick, he talked about something that I found to be very close to home with me. I hope it's in part 2. It might be in part 1. Okay, whatever. I'm just going to play it and we're going to listen to him. All right. There's a little bit of classical music in the beginning, but bear with me. Okay. But let's listen to what he says about his birthday. Okay. Listen for what he says about his birthday.
My name is Dick Gregory. Let me tell you about Dick Gregory. When I was a little boy, people say, "Hey, little Dick." Now, I didn't know they knew something. My name is Dick Gregory. Now, what's this now? I was born on October the 12th, Columbus' birthday. Now, the universe works like this. Little poor black motherfucker don't know where my daddy is. I don't know who Columbus is. So I thought the school was closed because of me. Is that a hell of a feeling, a vibration to carry from the time you're a little child to believe that everybody know who you are, and so we won't work this day, the banks will be closed?
Hola, soy Pablo y te quiero invitar a iSee109 en un proyecto, ya sabes, desde Cartagena con puro sabor. ¡Woo!
I am Dick Gregory.
All right, I dropped the sound out, so let me talk my ish. Did you hear what he said? He said, as a young boy, he didn't know anything about Columbus Day. He was born on Columbus Day, or October 12th. Now, isn't that crazy that he was only born like 3 days after me? Of course, he was older and he was born before me, but 3 days. His birthday was on October 12th. My grandfather's birthday was on that day too. But anyway, he's making the point that his birthday landed on a national holiday. Therefore, he had this sense. He said it was a vibration. He thought that people were taking the day off because it was his day. Admittedly, that's very much a egocentric, perspective. But nevertheless, can you imagine what it feels like to have your birthday, land on a national holiday? I can, because like Dick Gregory, when I lived in South Korea and my birthday landed on a national holiday, I felt like there was some simpatico, like it was a match, like I should be in this country. That's all I'm saying. Even with the difficulty of a black man living in South Korea, the difficulty of dating, the difficulty of just managing one's life and dealing with, work, job related issues and being far away from one's home and one's family, mother and father and siblings, with the difficulty of all of that all was put back on the back burner when I thought to myself, but my birthday is on a national holiday. I don't have to work on that day. I'm good in this country. Like Dick Gregory said, that's one hell of a vibration. So that's the first point of intersection of that I want to talk about. It was in South Korea when I made this, when I realized this. I made this discovery that 10/9 is a national holiday in Korea. Not only that, but the very first friend I made also was born on 10/9. My friend Luke. Now here's the thing that's crazy about that. Can you imagine having to travel thousands of miles away from your home in order to secure a job for yourself, to survive in this world? And then for me, the first friend I made was born on the same birthday. We were born on the same day, literally hours from each other. He was on one side, I was on the other side of the globe. And within hours, we were born. We were born within hours of each other. And then there we are in Korea, meeting face to face, and we become friends. Crazy how this stuff happens. The universe, how the world works, and how these things unfold. It's unbelievable. I've spent too much time talking about only the first country and the first point of intersection between myself, the universe, and 109. Let's continue, shall we? In Japan, which is just across the pond from South Korea, I traveled there and I discovered the shopping center, Shibuya 109. The Japanese call it, as I learned recently, Shibuya Ichimaru-kyu, which means 109 or 10/9. I forgot. But those numbers in Japan resonate with the Japanese. They're very popular numbers. And the word Tokyu, which there used to be a company called Tokyu Hands, which was very popular in Japan. Tokyu means 10/9. To meaning 10, Kyu meaning 9. Tokyu. So when I was walking around Tokyo, I often saw the signs that said Tokyu, Tokyu, and I thought, well, why did they misspell the name of their capital city, Tokyo? Why did they misspell it? I had no idea that I was actually reading Tokyu, which means 10-9. So even in Japan, I kept seeing 109 or 10-9, as I like to call it. Crazy coincidence. Crazy. But it's not so crazy when I talked with my grandfather before he passed last year, and he told me that the first time he went to Japan, he had a very surreal experience whereby he entered, or rather he was with his army buddies, and he told them, hey, let's go around the corner, there's a restaurant there. And sure enough, they made it around the corner, and there was a restaurant, just as my grandfather said. But he had never been to that restaurant before. There was just this overwhelming sense, this overwhelming feeling that he knew that there was a restaurant around the corner. And sure enough, there was. And then they went into the restaurant where my granddad said he had no problem finding the restroom because he had felt as if he had been there before and he knew exactly where it was. And that's the story that my grandfather told. Japan is a very special place. Very, very special place. All right. And for me and 10-9, those are the reasons. Next up is Saudi Arabia. I was in Saudi Arabia. I was at the airport. I was preparing to hail a taxi, and were I 1 minute earlier or 1 minute later, I would have missed this particular taxi. And because I was there at that particular moment, I was matched with this particular taxi. And this particular taxi that I'm referring to, well, the license plate read 109 and some other characters. For me, that was a miracle. Because just as I said, if I had been a minute earlier or a minute later, I would have missed that car. Not that I was waiting for that car, not that I was trying to get matched with this car, but the ideal that it happened the way that it happened, like I wasn't planning on that, wasn't expecting that just happened. And that license plate is just something that I noticed. Let's keep it going. I was in Havana, Cuba, and I was reading the book about Che Guevara entitled Diarios de Motocicletas, or the Motorcycle Diaries, when I read that Che Guevara was killed on October 9th. I thought that was a bizarre coincidence because I wasn't expecting to see 10-9, when I was reading about the book. All I wanted to know was more about Che Guevara. And I knew that I was reading about Che Guevara in Cuba. When I was in Cuba, I knew that I was reading about him. But I had no idea that I would find a greater significant coincidence or connection with him while reading his book. While I was in Cuba or Havana, I didn't know that was going to happen. And so that was really wild. But here's something that I didn't realize at the time. In 1997, after graduating high school, I recall being in a bookstore, Barnes and Noble, when I reached for a Che Guevara book, and a man accosted me. Hey, what are you reading that? What do you want to read that book for? Why are you reaching for that book? It scared me. I had never been accosted because of a book that I had chosen to read. I was a little nervous. I was alone at that bookstore, and I just thought, oh, maybe I shouldn't read this book. So I just put it back. That year was the year that Che Guevara's body had been found in Bolivia, where it had been buried in sort of a clandestine burial. They tried to hide the body and whatnot. The remains of Che Guevara and some other of his warriors, his soldiers, have been exhumed, and then they have been repatriated, brought back to Cuba. I was unaware of all of this that was taking place. Or rather, I think I had forgotten that it had taken place. I think it had made some news. Let me backtrack. Let me. I think I knew about the history. I knew I had heard something about Che Guevara, which is probably why I reached for the book in the first place. It was well publicized what was happening with Che Guevara. Not that I had read any of his books, not that I knew anything about his life at that time in 1997. And even though I reached for the book, I wanted to learn more, I was startled into not learning more about him. Okay. But we're talking like 20 some years later when I'm in Cuba and I've completely forgotten about the fact that his remains have been exhumed. I didn't even know that they were being repatriated to Cuba and then buried there. So when I was making the discovery that Che Guevara had died on 10/9, I was in Cuba and Che Guevara was in Cuba too. Like literally his bones were buried in Santa Clara in Cuba when I was there. Like that part, that's wild. Okay, that's how I want to tell that story. All right, number 5 is Frida Kahlo in Mexico. I went to Mexico and I took an Uber to get to where did I take it? To get to Frida Kahlo's Blue House. And when I got out of the taxi, when I got out of the Uber at Frida Kahlo's Blue House, that's when I looked at the radio, and I noticed that the radio was set to 100.9 on the FM dial. So for me, when I looked at 100.9, I didn't know that 100.9 is a famous radio station in Mexico. I didn't know that. All I knew was those are my numbers, 109. Now it's not specifically 10 and 9, but it's 1009. And if you look at that second zero as just the placeholder, then you still have only the value of 10 and 9. I think the math geeks will understand what I mean, because although 1009 is different from 109, even if you look at 1009, you can still see 10 and 9. And that is the cornerstone of my story, 10-9, those numbers. Not so much 109. Even though my brand is 10 and 9 because it's more efficient, it looks better. And because most of my stories are about 10 and 9, just like that, and how I found them around the globe. Yeah, I should probably just take this one story out because it doesn't fit. 100.9, that doesn't match. 110.9, that doesn't match. That's not it. All right, I'm gonna stop here. One of the GoPros has already died, and yeah, these podcasts only last like 30 minutes. I'm at the 23-minute mark now. All right, so let's catch up in a few. Let's take a break, and we'll come right back. All right, peace.